Now open the stickman script, create a header called anchor, and serialize field private game object called anchor, and give it a reference to it in the start method, anchor.transform.getChild. Now let's create one more header called variable private. Here we need a private integer called last best position joint, and the another integer called last best position selected. And now inside the getChild, add last best position selected dot game object dot get component, add a join script reference dot selected, and make sure the selected method is public in the join script, otherwise this method is not accessible. Inside the start method, we need to initialize our private integers like last best position joint is equal to 0 and last best position selected is also equal to 0. Now create a update method. Also create a private void check input function and call this function in the update method. Inside this function, check if input.get mouse button down or input.get key down keycode.space or input.touch count is greater than 0, and create another integer called int touches and add touches is equal to 0. So copy this line and paste it here. Now change button down to up, key down to up, change touch count greater than to equal to 0 and touches is greater than 0. Inside the mouse button down, set line render.enable is to true and edge join.enable is to true. And inside the mouse button up, set line render.enable is to false and edge join.enable is to false. Now we need some public variables. So create a header called public variables, and here add serialize field private float gravity rope, and also create one more serialize field private float gravity here and set this to 2 and set this to 0.5. Now inside the mouse button up function, set rb.gravity scale is equal to gravity rope, and inside the button up, set our rb.gravity scale to gravity ear. Now we need to create a logic to connect our joint rb to hinge. So add joint.connectedBody is equal to anchor.transform.getChild. Now create two private variables, private integer best position and private float best distance. Now add here best position.transform.getChild 0.gameObject.getComponent.rigidBody2D. By default, our best position at the start is 0. So we find the first joint, and then inside the joint we find the rigid body, which is present at the 0 index. Now create another private vector 3 called actual joint position, and then add here actual joint is equal to anchor.transform.getChild best position.gameObject.transform.position. Also at anchor.transform.getChild best position.gameObject.getComponent join dot set stick function. Also copy this line and paste it here and change the set stick to unselected method. Now add last best position join is equal to best position, and also set our rb.angular velocity is to 0. Now create another header called bool and add private boolean value called stick, and by default this is false. Now add this here, stick is equal to is not stick. Now go to the get mouse button up. Here set rb.velocity to new vector 3 rb.velocity.x and rb.velocity.y. Create two public variables called vector x and set this to 1.2 and create another one called vector y and set this to 1. Now multiply vector x with rb.velocity.x and plus this vector y with rb.velocity.y. Now here add anchor.transform.getChild last best position join dot game object dot get component join dot set unstick method. Check if best position is equal to last best position joint. Then anchor.transform.getChild best position dot game object dot get component join dot selected method, and copy this line and paste it here. Now change the best position to last best position selected and selected method to unselected method. Also set stride_render.stride is equal to ball stride. Now add rb.addTorque, negative rb.velocity.magnitude, set stick to is not stick. Also add touches is equal to input.touchCount. Okay, so that's it for the check input function. Now inside the update, add a for loop. I is equal to 0, I is less than anchor.transform.childCount and I plus plus. In the current scene, we have two joints. You can create more joints if you want. Now set the best position to 0 and best distance to float.max value. Inside the for loop, create a float actual distance and make this equal to vector2 dot distance game object dot transform dot position anchor dot transform dot get child I dot transform dot position. Now check the actual distance is smaller than the best distance, then our best position is I and our best distance is equal to actual distance. And also check if stick is true, then line render dot set position 0 game object dot transform dot position and line render dot set position 1 is actual joint position. Here we can add a function to change the sprite when a player is sticked to the joint. So create a private void function called change sprite and call this function here. Inside the update, add another check if last best position selected is not equal to best position, then anchor.transform.getChild last best position selected dot game object dot get component join dot unselected function. Now copy and paste this line here. Change unselected function to selected function and change last best position selected to best position. Also make a last best position selected equal to best position. Now save this script and go back to the editor. Now select the stickman object and drag our anchor object inside the script. Here you can see Unity gives me an error because our joint script name match with Unity's built-in component. So let's change the joint script name. Select the class, press Ctrl plus R twice. As you can see, a pop-up will come. Make sure to check these 3 marks. Now change the script name joint to joint anchor and hit enter. Go back to the editor. Now check our script name updated properly or not and hit play. As you can see now our stickman is successfully connected with our joint. So as you can see there is a problem. So Now open the stickman script again and make sure you can place this line of code outside this check statement. Save. Now open the joint anchor script. Here, find unsticked function and call here unselected function. Save the script and back to the Unity. Now select stickman object, open the sprite render component and change order in layer to 1. Now hit the play button. As you can see now, this is working properly. If you have any problem, feel free to ask, and you can also check out the source code as well if you are facing any errors.